Hi, Taylor.
Oh, hi, Ernest. Good evening. What time is it over
I'm
there?
fine. Hi, Karen.
How's it going?
I'm cool. Hi, Dorothy.
Hi, Ernest.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so late for you. It's 2 a.m. over there. Thank you so much for agreeing to
Oh,
do this.
absolutely. Damn.
Yeah, because Nigeria is 7 hours ahead of us. Yeah. Well, ahead of the East Coast specifically. The West Coast, rather. That's all right. Central Standard Time. Okay, cool. Hi, good evening, ladies, gentlemen, non-binary folks, and the like. My name is Is Jones, director of the Watershed reading series with Art Lit Lab, and it is my great pleasure to introduce to you our three incredible readers in our first reading of 2021. We're bringing you Ernest Ogunyemi, Kirwyn Sutherland, and Dorothy Chan. Please stay at the end for a brief Q&A with our readers. Ernest Ogunyemi is a reader and editor from Nigeria. His works have appeared or are forthcoming in Tinderbox, Journal 9, The Indianapolis Review, Down the River Road, Capsule Stories, 2035 Africa, a contemporary anthology of African literature, Mud Series Review, and elsewhere. He is the curator of The Fire That Is Dreamed Of, the Young African Poets Anthology. He is the winner of the Miracle Monocle Award for Young Black Writers, second place winner of the No Tokens Young Poets Prize, and a finalist for the 2020 Dan Bench Prize for Young Poets. Kirwyn Sutherland is a clinical research professional and poet who makes poetry centering the Black experience in America. He's a Watering Hole Fellow, Tribe, and has attended workshops and residencies at Cave Canem, Winter Tangerine, Poets House, Philadelphia Sculpture Gym, the Pearlstein Art Gallery at Drexel University. Kirwyn's work has been published in the American Poetry Review, Blue Shift Journal, Apiary Magazine, Folder, The Wanderer, and elsewhere. Kirwyn has served as an editor of Lists and Books Review for What's Good magazine and poetry editor for Apiary Magazine. His chapbook Jump Ship is published with Thread Makes Blanket Press. Dorothy Chan is the author of Revenge of the Asian Woman with Diode Editions 2019, Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, with 50-foot centerfold with Spork Press 2018, and the chapbook Chinatown Sonnets with New Delta Review. She is the 2020 and 2014 finalist for the Ruth Lilly and Dorothy Sargent Rosenberg Poetry Fellowship, a 2020 finalist for the Lambda Literary Award in Bisexual Poetry for Revenge of the Asian Woman, and a 2019 recipient of the Philip Freund Prize in the Center of Writing for Cornell University. Her work has appeared in Poetry, the American Poetry Review, Academy of American Poets, and elsewhere. She is an assistant professor in English at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, poetry editor at Hobart, book reviews co-editor, Pleiades, and founding editor and editor-in-chief of Honey Literary Review. Please give it up for our three readers.
Yeah. I'll be reading. The first poem I'll be reading is titled "Stitch Song." Um. Yeah. Stitch Song. In a dream, my father gave me a box. It was packed with blades, broken glass, and fan fronts. When I asked him what to do with the gift, he plucked the sparrow from its migration, dug the beak of a knife in its throat, and ran it down the terrace of its belly. In its belly, a gold coin, an herring, and 1,000 tiny miracles. He picked each fountain and said, here is the history of love. I asked him what it meant. He asked me to bring a needle and the thread. I watched him stitch back the story he had opened. Done with the stitching, I watched him sing a lullaby to the bird, pleading with it to wake up and kick its wings. I woke up from the dream, clutching my destiny to my chest, like the room was filled with hands hungry to rip it from me. I did not call my father to tell him of it. I went out and listened to the morning. Um, the second poem I'll be reading is titled Chrysanthemums, and it's a poem I wrote for my mom. Um, Chrysanthemums. Do you know what it means to not belong in your home body? I write this over and over in the sand that covers my mother's bones. But the bones do not squeak, do not rewrite the soft architecture of their laying. How easily I forget that the coin my father tossed in the animal's body won't be found in the sea of mine. On good days, the memory of my mother is a garden, bright with untouched flowers. On others, I find myself wandering in a packed field, like Cain, like Adam before him. The list is long. The history, a fat mouth, where an elegy of bad stunt without rest. I wonder if she is here, my mother, under this piece of cold earth, if she shares the space with her bones that lay quiet as toothless pianos. I was told the dead visit their dearest place on Wednesdays. They trouble the curtains, disturb the kitchen, unquiet the sheets, unpocket the drawers. When they are done stating their presence, the dead, do they visit their graves? And there, atop the graves that carry their names, soft gifts, do they drop chrysanthemums? So I still have time. So I'll be reading another poem titled Knife Elegy. Knife Elegy. Every day, my father begs me for a knife. Peel the pages of my life open, and you will find wounds, raw and lush. I have journeyed through slow and salt to get here. I don't expect you to believe me, even languid lies. I wonder if I'll be rich by 30, whether I'll always want a small, beautiful life. Oh, I fear that I'll never kiss my lover on the street in Paris. Fill the sparrows up. You will get what you sing. I am not here to give you a message. Why can't you watch the tulip and smile? When you get home, greet your mother. Go with her. Tell her you love her. I don't even remember what my mother's voice tasted like. Um, the next poem I'll be reading is titled Dear Sea. Remember the rustling of the tree branches under which we sat, as I told you of the brief thing that my life would be, because breathing is hard. The birds that fell like purple prayers but didn't because they kicked their wings and leaped back into the sky. I don't know what's true in this story and what's not. Memory wears too many faces, each shadowed by time. I don't know to remember how I couldn't see all the dandelions you held between your teeth, how to forget the warmth of your body close to mine when you pressed your head to my chest to hear the birds sing. What way leads backwards to the time when this wound was still in the womb and we could have undreamed it? And Kim, how I want to break the alabaster box for you and have you fill this house with the electricity of your mouth. But what is the use of wings in the kingdom of water? Of what use the moments we let slide like silk between the fingers, like morning emptying itself through the sieve of time? Why am I a love story that never happens? The next poem I'll be reading is titled Hot to Broken Things. Hot to Broken Things. Hot to the broken teacup and the broken ritual of love. To the broken femur of my joy, with the hand of the Lord snapped and stuck in the belly of the kiln. To the broken language and a toad, to the broken language of a toddler and the broken hope of a mother whose son is brought home to her wrapped like a bad present. To the broken-legged goat and the broken wear of his voice, to the broken vow and the broken promise, all yellow, all blue, to the broken line and the broken paragraph, to the broken mirror and the broken sonata that is my mother's ghost, the broken marijuana and the broken possession, the broken ballad and the broken spin, and the starless night that comes with legs left cold, to the broken world and its broken beauty, which I am learning day by broken day to love, the broken song and the broken wing of faith, the broken sheep and the broken mouth of the sea that swallows it, to the broken dream and the broken night, to the broken Wi-Fi that connects my eyes with sleep, to the broken bottle once filled with gin, fire broken in my belly, tiny embers flying around. And the last poem I'll be reading um, is titled To My Lover, for Shikemi, to my lover. When we make love, I swear, I taste God's plum. I feel the sex in my gums, the sweetness aches in my teeth. Demi, the fireflies spread to my waist, brown sugar in my mouth, melting on my tongue, cake. Oh, how I miss the cleft, the hill, the river, that slippery animal, tulip, fine layer upon fine layer, pink as a fresh cut. I taste the river. I taste its salt, its silt, silky. Remember how the bed creaked as you rolled me into that bright city. Colors everywhere, high, high as fuck. Kept wondering what those outside the window thought of the music of our bodies. Tiny birds hymning in your throat, guitars dancing inside of me. I would always remember that room, its cool cream walls, the smell of dust and disuse in the air, the bed hard, the bed frame shaky, the smoking is highly prohibited on the wooden wall in the corner, the white toilet, the Igbo movie on the TV, the table on which I'd spilled bare while undoing your bra, clothes piled in the corner, witnesses. And when you got under me, and the deer of my desire drove my body into yours again and again, I will never forget how you looked, your face golden and bright like it was you who had seen God face to face and his shine was reflecting on you. Your eyes closed, your lips apart, your mouth a tiny cave packed with birds, things flying around inside of you. Oh, may we never forget this very thing that we have. Thank you. Oh, I think I still have 4 minutes. Oh, all right. Let me let me go ahead and read some more poems since I still have some time. Um, um, Here is a poem, the last, Electric Hymn. Purple boy with a mouth the color of spring. What stilled the night squire? What hand operated its song from the head's vein? Mirror, mirror, oracle that you are, tell me what animal waits me. Eternally, I'll be your dog, obedient as the flow of time. No, that's a lie. I would rather be a cat, or cattle, or anything that does not carry sorrow like a testimony. Lord, Lazarus me. I want to flaunt into the house of death and come out unscattered. No taste of soil in my tongue, no more blood in my mouth. My mother alive in my hands like an electric hymn. Lord, this too. Give me back the body that preceded this. Thank you.
Should I go straight after?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to read a couple of poems from a full length that I'm working on of Ars Poetica poems, and then I'm going to read a couple from my collection, Jump Ship. Ars Poetica 6. I ingested a whole white man on Chew Street and Shelton Avenue at 7:30 a.m. while my bacon, egg, and cheese on long roll was between sizzle and mangled, while I was posted up 30 degrees from the gutted laundromat, while I was nodding to loud music and loud, while I was waiting for Scepter to skirt right up to the domes of my Jordans, and the hawk was swarming my Vaseline-caked cheeks. I heard the big metal breathe, so I ran to claim my seat with my stomach on E, but niggas was oriented book bag to shoulder to book bag all the way up to the dash. I yelled for a spot, but The driver snatched his eyes and poured out the machine's exhaust. And it was just 7:52 a.m. and my nerves done already worked the shift. Folks that gotta wait for the next bus have this way of holding their necks and shaking their heads, conspiring at the curb about population control and how they keep having babies and how this time last year I could have made a bed with all the empty seats. The anger transported so fast might as well have been contagious. The few transformed to we, a chorus of Moynihan acolytes riffing on welfare and single moms and disrespectful kids and fathers who underwent chemical changes and empty rooms that gnawed at the psyche. The frenzy of sentences so thorough and pointed, it could be a timeline or an autobiography. The resentment of not being an employee on time, rushing up the throat so fast, I thought I might have been able to fly all the way to my cubicle. Ars Poetica 7. 1. In July of 2004, the 9th flask of Gila sales turned up contaminated. In October of 2001, I was asked to join the research lab. In March of 2001, I toured the research lab. In September of 2001, I scored the 3rd highest grade out of 150 students. In September of 2001, I was asked if I cheated. In September of 1951, Henrietta Lacks was told her cells were mythical. In January of 1992, I was placed in the mentally gifted program. From January 1984 to August 2001, I was told to leave and never come back. In every year, somebody I knew disappeared. In July of 2004, the 8th flask of Gila cells turned up contaminated. In October of 2001, I was asked to join a research lab. In September of 1951, George Gent stole organs. In January of 2021, every incubator around the world is evidence. 2. Do you remember the first time a white person picked you? Did you smile through the entire plunder or just part way? The trick is to see through, to get the bag, to keep the fingers around their neck so the side don't have you. 3. But the riches, fire. Only Black one, spreading gospel over 2 tongues, that hood and that tower. That vibe got me at the back of mad readings where they don't say nigger out loud, but they do say, oh joy, when I paint a bullet pretty, that vibe, BLM headlines to be prated about. They say Kirwyn got them not so spoken word pieces, you know, the kind where the charity doesn't seem so obvious. I'm spilling all the espresso, but still getting into the party. That's that Black privilege. That's that assimilation praxis. That's that invisibility. This next Ars Poetica is sort of flanked by quotes by Dion Brand from The Blue Clerk. And The Blue Clerk is a book of 59 Ars Poetica. So I drew a lot of inspiration from Dion Brand. Ars Poetica 14. The protagonist lived in a world, as I, of the absurd, but somehow everybody believed it was credible. These people keep asking questions about products when the degree is iron pressed into every cubic centimeter of my skin. I traveled to rooms filled with brass-knuckled devils and passed through walls to be able to bleed in a cap and gown. I discovered the exact work requirement for twice as good and the precise velocity for a stem cell to proliferate, and how to shuffle my feet back from a building's edge. And these people chipping and chiseling and whittling away. The hyper-real was hyper-real already for us. The protagonist lived as an avatar, a projected image. Paperboy popping out the big screen, template to engineer my third personality. The fat on him compressed cause the texture of the voice say so. Slow drag out vowels, subtract the grip on the love handles, talk greasy to everybody gawking. The fat on him sharp and angled, not really fat no more, at least not the first adjective. See me and think twice about loosening your mouth, a mutated code switch, an evil jolly jiggle, a spaceship I deploy to jump time, rewire nerves, stitch lips shut, pump in a voice to fill out those husky slacks, that fat on him skin, organic. The more significant reading is that Ellison, like his clerk, was beyond time. Ellison wants us to take note of the repressive machine and its evacuating of the protagonist's body and will. It is with great sorrow, I tell you, if it was up to me, I would have not made it out. I would have chosen to be a statistic. I would have stayed with my friends. It is with great joy I tell you I was privileged, so I didn't have to choose. I was tagged, tracked, and pushed. I made it out. It is with no emotion I tell you run and keep running until you don't make sense. So I'm gonna read a couple poems from Jump Ship and then I'll be done. And here it is, Jump Ship. It was published in December 2019 by Thread Makes Blanket Press, distributed by AK Press. And yeah, it took a while, so I'm happy it's out. So I'm gonna read two poems from here and then I'll be done. Nigger, contemptuous, dirty like a shade removed from clean. Like, get that nigger away from me before I catch the chains. Term, it is what it is. Call it black or white. Game too equal sounding, call it something else. White or redacted. Black as absence of words and unterming. Term, nigger as black body experimenting with pain. Nigger as tough enough to balance a plantation on its shoulders. Nigger as vacancy of space, as in there was a nigger under a tree and a laughing white woman draped on a limb dipped a noose into a mob. Nigger as in resurrection, as in death can be redacted and another nigger can rise from the absence of words used. Nigger, only word gotta use itself to be understood, as in there is a day where a nigger is rolled so hard its bones fold into nothing, and then the sun peeks over the horizon and a new body uses its fingers to crawl out of an atom, as in there is faith in some kernel to sprout another nigger to be rolled to. My niggas pray for an interruption, as in a blade cutting through the mouth of a master, as in a jagged line draining the color out of a definition. Refer to the master who thinks he holds a free ride forever. He better let go or try to define another color body to experiment with, or turn the scalpel on himself, or study how a whole race of people can kill his image and still love themselves enough not to redact back to my niggas. Revenge is a dish best served empty and clean. White plates, a mirror they never imagined you would give them. Black, as in, nigga, you ignite unto yourself. As in, you displace the sun and absorb it. As in, you leave all the white spinning in its own body with nothing to turn into a reflection of itself. As in, the redaction used the pillow instead of the gun. So my last poem is called Y'all Ain't Just Start Calling the Cops on Black Folk, and it's pretty self-explanatory with the time. So yeah, I'm just gonna get into it. Y'all ain't just start calling the cops on Black folk. Can you see me now? Can you see me? Can you see? Can you? Can you? Can you? Can you? It's too late. See? 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 Can you see? Oh, you see now. It's too late. I am already other. It's too late. It's too late. See? Right there. See? Can you see the siren? Can you see the siren smoking? Can you see the siren smoking off your tongue? It's too late. I am already questioned, detained, followed, evidence. Can you see me now? Can you see me now? Color. Can you see color? You see color now, 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 now. I'm Black now. I'm Black now. I'm Black now. It's too late. I'm Black. Can you see the siren smoking off your tongue? Where's the fire? I'm asking you. I'm asking you who don't see color. I'm asking about fire. I'm asking about seconds. I'm asking about the flash between my face and your call. What did you see? What am I? What did I do to you? You had to see something. You had to. I want to know. Tell me. I'm Black and I'm Black and I'm Black and this is your part. Can you see me giving you a part of me? You still need the cops? Thank you.
All right, my turn. Thank you so much, Kirwyn. You are a very powerful reader. I'm very honored to share the stage with you tonight. And thank you, Ernest. I'm so glad the three of us are reading together. And thank you, Etiola, for hosting us. So I'm going to start off with a triple sonnet, of course. And this is Triple Sonnet for Celebrities with 3 names from the latest edition of Poetry Magazine. So here we go. Triple sonnet for celebrities with 3 names for Josh. If you've got 3 names and you're famous, does that mean 3 times the amount of fucking? I daydream about my ideal lovers and hearing cut when the director tells us to switch positions on the set of our bedroom. And what's a bigger turn on than someone saying your name under the covers? How about saying your name 3 times? And oh, fuck, fucking, fuckus. Yeah, that's a superlative, like the Beetlejuice effect, only freakier. Like, let's get transported into the house I built in a simulation game where my avatar seduced, then killed the richest man for the sake of inheriting, then remodeling his mansion into her dream of glass windows in every room. The pleasure of always watching what's going on. And I swear, I'm a really nice girl. I really am. Just say the magic word and I'm all yours. And surveys reveal that the word lovers, which their lovers said more, is please. And I wonder if please is short for pleasure, as in eat your girl right, as in I'll order a clitty clitty bang bang at a midnight viewing, as in please let me put on a show for you, as in I love any event with a ton of cameras, as in keep feeding me macaroons while you're feeling me up in the bath. And if I was a celebrity, I'd tack my middle initial K back into my name for extra effect. my secret K, as in Kaying, as in white boys. Will you stop calling me by my middle name because you think speaking Cantonese will bring us closer? And it's ironic how an actual lover adds in the K every time she says my full name. And she says it with such authority, it's a turn on. Like, baby, say my full name again and I'll record you. Why don't you, K? K is for kink. K is for not. K is for kissing. K is for king. Crown me. And don't fool me by saying queen, because I know where all my power lies. And K is for knock me down and pin me down on the grass, lover, because you on me is the closest to nature I'm ever getting. Second triple sonnet of the night. This is triple sonnet for Asian girlfriends. Cancel my membership. The Asian Girlfriends of White Guys Club is a membership I never want to renew, so cancel my card. I need space in my juicy couture wallet, and according to dating sites, girls who look like me get the most amount of action. But what else is new when some dude's granddad regaled him with tales that Asian girls are more fuckable with their tight pussies, the sideways vagina, holy grail breakfast specials, and old men? Stop with your war stories. Get away from my tight ass pussy. Let me protect her with the world's finest lingerie. And I pose in front of the mirror, snapping photos the way painters used to eye fuck their muses. But I'm my own damn muse, thank you very much. And I crave seduction. Remembering how I played Aphrodite in an elementary school play, how I bemoaned that role because what's up with the goddess of love and Aries? Who would be attracted to war, to rage, to incest? And why does every girl end up with either angry guy Aries or ugly guy Hephaestus when she's the prize herself? And Vanna White, let me spin that damn wheel again, or whatever game show it is that we're on where I can choose another door. And where's my golden Dalmatian, or my endless supply of cotton candy ice cream, or my vacation to Tokyo? And you bet your ass I'm taking a friend, not a lover, because what is love? And you've hurt me once more, and you've hurt me once more. No, I don't want Nihao. I don't want masculine hands on my thigh. I don't want a masculine hand holding my hand. A 10-inch height difference is only cute for a month, and after that, my neck hurts trying to hug you. And I don't want a spork when we're eating dim sum. I don't want ice water when we're eating dim sum. Get your hands off my tatsu bao. Like, are you actually cute, or are Western dating standards telling me you're the ideal? The Adonis to my Asian Aphrodite. And wait, I got the myth wrong, but who really cares? In my next manuscript, I'm also doing a series of poems, a new form that I've created called the recipe poem, which inserts a recipe right in the middle of the poem. And most of these recipes are actually like Hong Kong style, Cantonese style recipes. And so it's another fun thing to do. I love experimenting with forms. So this one is called Recipes for Boys Named Stanford, Duke, and Berkeley. Recipe for boys named Stanford, Duke, and Berkeley. I like boys who are named after prestigious schools, Stanford, Duke, Berkeley, or maybe even Yale, if that's even a name. If your parents are super explicit about your dreams, and let's go Bulldog, Bulldog, Bulldog. I think back to 3-year-old me wearing a UCLA t-shirt, gazing into the mirror of my family's Hong Kong penthouse from my father's hard-earned, self-made, salt-of-the-earth money. It's 1993, and I hear my older brother crying to my father in the other room over his poor grades. And before you know it, it's 1 year later, and we're on a plane to America. And my brother finishes high school in Pennsylvania because doctors and engineers aren't made from poor grades. And my father gave it all up. The home with a view on Kowloon, the car, the job, my mother's happiness, all for my brother to have a future. And I like boys who are named after prestigious schools, Stanford, Duke, Berkeley, and you know it, Yale. Because when you're a child of Cantonese parents who moved to America for you, it's Ivy League or else. And I think of my father who grew up eating soy sauce on days old rice, looking out the window, Hong Kong in the 1950s, this game of watching the cars drive past and writing down their license plates, adding them up. And when I'm 5, I start spending my summers learning math. When my father's at work, my mother's at home teaching me instead of going to the pool. And back in Hong Kong in the 50s, my father looked looks out the window and his pet goose arrives. And in PA in the 90s, my parents and I spent Saturdays at the park feeding the ducks and geese, then going home to my mother's turnip cakes as an afternoon snack. My brother prefers them boiled and I prefer them fried, Hong Kong dim sum style. Saute your preserved meat, black mushroom, and half of your dried shrimps with 2 tablespoons of oil. Skin the turnips, wash and shred. Add a cup of water to cook for 20 minutes as the turnips tender. Mix corn flour and rice flour with 3 cups of water, including water where the turnips were cooked. Mix turnip seasoning, preserved meat, black mushroom, dried shrimp, rice flour, corn flour. Keep stirring while cooking until the mixture turns into a paste. Pour your paste into a grease bowl and smooth the surface. Sprinkle with dried shrimps and steam for an hour. Add parsley and spring onion and steam for another 2 minutes. Slice when cool and serve. Enjoy. And how I enjoyed those Saturdays of sitting in boats at the park, ducks swimming after us after our bread, my mother and father talking in Chinese, reminiscing on times when neither one of them could boil water, reminiscing on the time they first moved to America, thinking peanut butter and jelly was some gourmet dish. And I like boys who are named after prestigious schools, Stanford, Duke, Berkeley, and you know what, Yale, because my father still has those photos of toddler me in Hong Kong wearing my UCLA t-shirt in our Kowloon penthouse, drawing and stamping on the walls, throwing plastic toys against the window. And I always wonder what would have been if we had never left. The missed peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and trips to the park and the taste of Hong Kong in a turnip cake in PA. And one final poem for tonight. This one was published in Waxwing, Triple Sonnet for Stud Muffins Wrapped in Bacon, a little light one to end us. Triple Sonnet for Stud Muffins Wrapped in Bacon. I'd like to order a lover wrapped in bacon from your secret menu because I'm a really hungry Chinese girl at this drive-in. Give me all meat, all man, 100% grade A, all natural cut with a side of sensitive. And don't forget the condiments in the bag. And isn't this ideal? Having your cake and eating it too, or having your beefcake and eating him too, or having your stud muffin feed you strawberry cake in the bubble bath like you're both rich and happy with unlimited wardrobes and private jets. And I want to feel like women with those enviable thighs in erotica winding up their men. She whines, he drools, she whines. He drools, your boy toy or man toy. And I want to lean in for a kiss after telling my lover about wrapping him in bacon because bacon tastes good on everything, from deviled eggs to mac and cheese and heart attack burgers on secret menus, 3 greasy patties and bacon, 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 a little melted cheese. And once I watched an interview with a starlet who said how melted cheese was her favorite food and no more beautiful words have ever been spoken. And let food be your fantasy, how children believe that the moon is made of cheese or how adults want to live in houses made of Gouda. And in Hong Kong, my cousin Janet recommends cheese hot pot with chicken. And no, that's not the same thing as fondue, also known as the 2000s version of romantic. Dip your date in cheese or take me back to the drive-in and let me order some number 1s of hunks of men on bread dipped in cheese and some number 4s of man sandwiches cut and chiseled to perfection with tomatoes and special sauce. Or what about some number 5s on the breakfast menu, stud muffins, both sweet and full of whole grain and buff, buff, buff. And why is it that I start giggling when my love and I start talking about food? Pass the sauce, please. I'm ready to eat you up, order you again. Thank you.
Damn, y'all, those are some poems. Goodness. Wow. I need a minute. I was like in the background working and also like trying to like make up questions, but also trying to be in the audience and enjoy all 3 of you. Thank you so much. If you're at home in your chair, give it up for our 3 readers. Yeah, let's get into the question portion of the evening. I think I want to begin with you, Dorothy. I gather that you've already been asked this question a lot, but I'm curious about what it is about the triple sonnet that kind of gives you permission to be yourself so much in your poems, right? I've read triple sonnets before, but there's a way in which you seem to take the form and make it yours completely. I'm curious about how you were introduced to the form, how it has informed your writing, and how it's giving you permission to just be yourself.
Yeah, so thank you for that question. I love that. So I'm going to start with, I did my undergraduate at Cornell University where I was mentored and taught by the great Lyra Van Cleef Stefanen. And if anyone in the audience is looking for any books to buy during this time, please do support Lyra's work. Obviously she's an amazing poet. Check out Black Swan and open interval. And no, Black Swan is not the same as that movie. Her book came first, so like let's not get it confused. But yeah, those are two books that I also teach to my students. My students love her work, and so it's a really like kind of like this long story I have with the sonnet, this long history, because Lyra introduced my class to that form in the first poetry workshop I ever took with her. And I remember when she started discussing the sonnet, she showed us a video of these very beautiful dancers, and they were dancing in like this box structure, a man and a woman. And it was a very, very sensual dance. And Lyra described the sonnet as this box of tension and release. And so, yes, in that dance, it was very sensual, very like sexually charged, but also very like rhythmic, very beautiful on top of everything else, very sublime. And so I started thinking more about this box of tension and release. And so in one sonnet, in a sonnet of 14 lines in iambic pentameter, we're taught to have one volta in that sonnet. And we're also taught to have like this kind of tension and release from one line to the next. If you think about iambic pentameter, or if you think about pentameter of speaking or writing 10 syllables before you take a pause, that actually mimics our natural speech. And so what attracts me to the sonnet is how that whole idea is tripled. And in so many cultures, like 3 is a lucky number, but I also think back to this idea of excess, because I love the sonnet. I think it's the perfect form. It's like this amuse-bouche, this appetizer of poetry. What if we had more? Because if you love something in life, why would you just have one when you could have like 3 or 10 or 100 or like 10 million books of it? And so that's really how the triple sonnet came to be, because I felt that 1 wasn't enough. 2 is just wrong for me. You know, a double sonnet for me is just not right. But then the triple sonnet for me is perfect.
Wonderful, thank you. Ernest, welcome. It's like what? It's 2:42 where you are? 3:42?
Yeah.
I'm curious about there's a way in which your work is very ubiquitous. You are able to talk about love and longing and grief and loss in ways that seem to loosely quote Terrence Hayes, be human above the body, right? How is it that you're so young too, and there's this way in which you seem to understand the human condition at your age? I'm curious about how poetry is the vessel by which you're able to negotiate all of these emotions that seem to live so deeply inside of you.
Yeah. First of all, sorry that you can't see me. It's Nigeria.
Have you?
Yeah. I think that basically the reason is that I lost my mom at a very young age, and it was 7 days to my 12-year birthday, and that just changed my life because it felt like my life took an entirely new turn after my mom passed. And it's been 8 years now. And while I'm very young, the grief has been very heavy. And I've poetry, when I started reading, I began to feel the grief more intensely and the loss. So but about bringing that to the page, I don't know how that happens. I believe that poetry is magic, but I don't know how it happens that I'm able to articulate a lot of the things that I'm able to articulate. But I believe that basically because of my mom's passing, like changed a lot of things for me. In Yoruba, there is this thing that they say that a child that does not have a mother does not get a wound on his back because you won't have somebody to tend to the wound for you. And in the absence of not having someone to tend to the wound for you, I believe that I have to grow fresh hands to take care of myself. And growing fresh hands for me is basically writing about these things. And while poetry does not like take away the grief, poetry actually helps me to bear the grief to an extent. So I think that when I come to the page and I want to write, what I want to do is to be able to connect or to communicate with my dead mother, and to be able to make a lot of things that that are not possible, and probably in trying to find possibility on the page, I am able to articulate those things. So basically, that's just it. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Ernest. Thank you. Kirwyn, you write very Black poems. You write for Black people. I'm curious about the ways in which maybe people who are outside of that nucleus of the way you write, how they approach your work, and how maybe the ways in which people who aren't Black, the way they approach your work informs or maybe doesn't inform your approach. Because I think I'm also curious about the ways in which maybe Black theory or Black critical theory plays into your work at all. So yeah, I would like to hear you talk about that.
Yeah, I'll start with, so I've actually, like, for the past maybe 3 or 4 months, I've been engaging in a deep study of Black critical scholarship going back from the 60s and 70s, especially like poets specifically. And so what I'm kind of seeking to do, and this is for me has been like an ongoing sort of project, has been to like fuse or synthesize this sort of like more what people would consider academic poetry and the oral and the rhythmic and the spoken word. And even as far back as the 70s, like some of the same conversations were being had where, you know, critics were saying like, Stephen Henderson in particular was saying like, when we talk about formulating theories of Black poetics, we need to be sure to include the oral and the music, as opposed to other critics who, you know, didn't explicitly say that they wouldn't include those, but just didn't include the oral in their formulations. So I think when I like come to the page, like I had that explicitly in mind, and I think before I had like a lot of like there was like a person on my shoulder that said like, you know, like this audience thing over here that was like, you know, sort of like guiding my words. And I think like my work is more so like whatever happens is kind of how it is. And if they come to it, fine. And if they don't, then, you know, I don't know what to tell you. So that's kind of how it is now. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah. This question is for both Dorothy and Ernest. There's ways in which you both have an American audience and then audiences in you know, both Nigeria, you know, China, and even maybe a larger Asian population. I'm curious about the ways in which your work speaks to both of those regions, but then also maybe finds middle ground, whether it's through form, subject, or if that's something you even think about in your work, or you just kind of write into your own lived experiences that seem to be by virtue of existing diasporic.
Yeah, I can start off. Thank you for that great question, Itiola. So yeah, so on the one hand, I really write from just lived experience because in a typical year, when we're not in a COVID year, my family and I try to visit Hong Kong every year to see my mom's side. So I really like write from that experience. And I think part of it is also kind of like this critique of that experience too, because of the really, in many ways, like harmful patriarchal structures that still exist in Hong Kong. And like, there are good things too, but of course I'm going to be coming at that from that perspective, and also perspectives of like queer phobia and homophobia that exist in Hong Kong, and things that make me kind of sad during those trips. You know, those are really like moments of like intense thinking for me. On the other hand, though, you know, a couple years ago, during my MFA at Arizona State, I had the pleasure and honor of teaching at the National University of Singapore for a summer. And so I taught there. I taught a creative writing course there with a fiction writer, Naomi Talushkin. And so I've been kind of like exposed to students in Singapore, to audiences in Hong Kong, and their various interest levels in poetry. And I think that there's definitely an interesting market market for poetry and the literary in many parts of Asia. So that's something that will continuously interest me as I keep writing.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I remember a particular experience. I was probably 17. I just started writing poetry, and I sent a packet of poems out to this magazine, and they not only rejected me, they told me that I was writing in a style that is no longer that is not contemporary, and that style is archaic. So I got this anthology from a secondhand bookstore, the Pushcat anthology, and I remember that I read the poems and started writing poems like the poems in that anthology, because at the time I was submitting to the magazine that rejected me and said I was writing in an archaic style. I had been reading Nigerian poets. There was this, and African poets. There was this Black African poetry anthology. But then when I came across the Pushcat anthology, it just changed a lot of things for me. However, I don't think that when I want to write, I deliberately have an audience in mind. I don't. I just write from lived experiences. But again, the fact that I am exposed to the American literary culture. The magazines that I submit to are basically American literary magazines, because there are very few platforms on the continent and in Nigeria. And then I was part of the Adroit mentorship program, and that's an American mentorship program. And the materials that I was introduced to were materials by American poets and American writers. So because I'm engaging with that literary culture, it is consequently you'd expect that that would reflect in my work. So yeah.
Also, Ernest, I just want to say that you and I have also worked together in
Yeah.
a professional setting. I was one of the co-editors for your wonderful anthology. And I just want to say that I think always, but especially now, there's a ways in which I want to believe at least the American imagination is becoming more open to a purely African experience. And I have to say purely African because there's this way sometimes in which when Africans write, they have to accommodate the American imagination, sometimes at the expense of an African experience. But I think now things are changing. At least that's what I believe, that I believe that things are changing and that there's more space or more capacity for experiences that don't always necessarily accommodate the American ego. This is a question for all three of you. Everyone here has a project, or rather a book, either a micro chapbook or a full length. I'm curious about where you were, or how the project came to be, and how eventually it found its way into the world. Did you initially and then deliberately set out to write a book, or were you just kind of writing poems that sort of captivated you, and then you realized, oh wow, I'm in the middle of a book, and then from there you felt ready enough to let it go out into the world and live whole lives away from you?
I can start. I was just writing poems, and then I was approached by Thread Makes Blanket, which is the press that I intended to use. And when I was approached by them, I said, I think I have enough poems for, a chapbook, So I said, all right, cool. So I think it was very much like I knew in the back of my mind that I wanted to have a collection, and it was around the right time. But, I think I probably needed that push of like, hey, like, do you want to do this? And so I had my collection of poems, and when they went through the first edit, the editor was like, well, like these 5 poems are actually like, seem like they're talking to each other, and these other poems maybe not so. So it was actually like from the first edit, there were only like 5 poems from the chapbook that I kept. And then I wrote the book. I wrote like a couple more poems and then pulled some other poems around those 5. And so it took about 2 years from that time to when it actually came out. And I'm glad it did, because it allowed me to like shape how I wanted the book to be, with both artwork and like the pieces. And so it allowed me to be like, you know, put out something that I'm proud of. And now I just feel like, you know, I had such anxiety with coming out with a collection that was on actual press. And I remember like attending a workshop by Patrick Rosal, who's the, you know,
Yeah, Patrick Rosal is, whew.
you know, and he had a workshop on like just a book, ordering a book. And he was talking about how in his initial collection, like, you know, he kind of, you know, like ordered it like however, like it wasn't linear. And so he had us do exercises in order and just ordering the pieces in our book, and what are different ways to approach that. And I think that really liberated me with you know, like ordering the book and like letting it go at some point, in the sense that this is not like final. Like you could always work, you know, but actually like letting it go, you know, at a certain time. So yeah.
Kirwyn, I need tips on ordering a manuscript because I'm working on a full length. Yeah. So when I think I had my microchap. I had about 15 poems, and it was a different title, and I sent it out to. But all the poems were about my mom or about grief. So I sent it out to a press, and they rejected it, and then it came back to me, and then I just removed about 5 poems and left the 10 poems that I thought spoke to each other, were in conversation with each other, with one another. When I started work on that, I didn't um, I I don't think I just wrote the poems. I wrote the poems, and then I just brought them together in a collection. So it wasn't like I had this idea of a microchap in my head, and then the submission opportunity. I found the submission opportunity, and I just sent it out. So it wasn't like I was writing towards a particular theme. I was just writing all the poems, and then I just brought them all together. But for my full length, which is titled I must say that I want to be truly happy, I was working deliberately, but I still need tips on ordering the full end. Yeah.
And so for me, I'm going to first preface by saying that I had a very traditional route in terms of like starting to publish, because I did a bachelor's and then an MFA and then a PhD. And also just to preface that that's not for everyone, you know, there's different routes in terms of like publishing, editing, whatever you're interested in the literary world can come from a variety of different like angles. But this route did work for me simply because during graduate school, you get all this time and funding to write. So that is like one of the nice things, I would say. So in terms of putting together a manuscript, Kirwyn, I really love your point about the nonlinear way that you can put together a manuscript, because I think that if we can, in every genre of writing, not just in poetry, if we can get out of like nonlinear thinking and nonlinear time and storytelling, I think that's going to like really help a lot of us, writers in general, readers in general, in terms of like how we perceive events, time, form, setting, etc. And so I think that that's really beautiful. And at the same time, arguably, when you write a manuscript, even if it's non-linear, there is always still going to be a narrative arc. There's always going to be volta. So for instance, if you're writing a poem, one poem, and you have like one volta, or I call it multiple voltas, or I say like multiple orgasms in like one poem, you have to have that orgasm repeat itself in the book itself, you know, because that's just a good existence, everyone. And so I think that's a really beautiful way of putting it. In terms of me getting the manuscript or manuscripts out there. So when I was younger, especially during undergraduate to the start of my MFA, I really thought of books as like projects. And I know that every book or manuscript is like a project, but I had a very like project oriented way of thinking, being like, oh, so this book is about like Chinatown and this book is about centerfolds and they cannot blend. And so that was like how I started out. But then I think during graduate school, I thought of ways in which these stories, these arcs, these different settings, these different presentations of the self, sexuality, and sensuality can actually blend together.
Thank you for that, Dorothy. I also just really appreciate, and I really want to echo what you said about the MFA, especially as someone who went through the MFA twice. There's this mythos, and I think it plagues our generation of writers, that if you have to go to an MFA to be considered a legitimate writer, you have to do all of these things. And I honestly, I'm just gonna be frank and say it, I resent the fact that an MFA legitimizes a writer, and that's just inherently untrue. Many of the writers that we love, that we're passionate about, they did not have a formal education in writing. They didn't even have a formal education in English, many of them, right?
Exactly.
Some of them were anthropology majors, chemists. They did other things, but they loved writing. And I just appreciate you saying that it's true that an MFA will afford you time, money, professional access. But I think it's unfair to cut that off from folks who, for personal or professional reasons, can't be in an MFA.
Exactly. And of course, we could have like a whole discussion for days, about like the whole like whitewashing that exists during the MFA and all those like really harmful things that, like communities of color, writers of color, queer and trans writers like go through, and anyone of various intersections goes through during some of those like really like difficult workshops. And so I think that, like, to echo that, in order for one to become a writer, one just has to simply put in the hours, take the revision, take the criticism, but that's really just the bottom line of it, regardless of how someone wants to like do all of that.
Right. Especially, I remember when I took like a 2-year break in between programs, and I was still finding a way to write. I was writing and freelancing full time, and it was hard, but I found a way to write. And much of my project that I wrote in between that space when I wasn't in programs.
Exactly. Because it's really about that quick epiphany in idea, and that doesn't always happen during like the MFA or during the workshop. So I think that to anyone in the audience who's looking at an MFA, that could be a really good thing to anyone in the audience right now who's looking into PhDs. But again, also know that there's multiple ways of going about becoming a writer. And many times during these programs, if you find the right mentors, which I was honestly lucky to have, but I understand that not everyone has that experience, that can be a really good thing too. But there's other ways to connect with people and writers.
Right. I would even go as far as to say that a really bad MFA experience could really be damaging, even more damaging than not being in an MFA at all.
Exactly.
In my first MFA, I had a lot of professors who were not very supportive or accommodating, and often it kind of felt as though they were not on my side. You know what I mean? It often felt as though I had these dreams and ambitions, and I often felt as though they were trying to talk me out of it. But now in the program that I'm in, not only do I have an incredibly supportive thesis committee, I kind of feel I have even more permission than I ever had before to kind of be myself completely in writing, which again, I want to echo, you don't necessarily need that, but it does. But I also want to be frank that having that support system makes a world of difference.
It really does. And I'm really glad that you're having a really wonderful experience now, Itiola. And I also think that just a quick note, that I think that's something that a lot of professors and instructors in creative writing programs need to keep in mind, is that, yes, we have to talk about like the canon and decolonizing our syllabi. And a huge part of that is also exposing students to different traditions of writing, because as we know, this like very like white, Western, heteronormative lens, patriarchal lens, is very, very harmful. And so teachers have to grow like even faster than students do. And so teachers need to keep up with the times and encourage their students of all backgrounds.
And teach living poets.
Exactly. Like, give living poets your money. It's like, what's Shakespeare going to benefit from? I don't even know if he like existed, give living poets your money.
Yeah. Do you all have questions for each other? Oh, Kirwyn, you're going to say something?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, like, as somebody who's like probably taking a more non-traditional route, that really, and I think both of you hit on it about like the mentor part and developing relationships, because that's definitely something that you can do, and that really helped me. Like just being in Philadelphia, like with like Patrick is there, Yolanda Wisher, Eric D. Matthews, like, you know, just having these folks like around just to talk to has been awesome. And also I would say it's, for me, it's just been like a really, really fraught relationship with like going up against like what, you know, say if I'm going from being a spoken word or slam artist to now like, okay, so you want to like publish in journals, and what does that look like? Because when you go from like having a specific poem that has a certain energy like on the stage, and people sort of are pushing you to translate it for the page, there's something that can be lost in that translation if you don't have the tools to effectively transfer it. And I think that, you know, like, I'm glad that there's more like outlets for spoken word and slam artists, and more spoken word and slam artists are able to sort of do that synthesis with their own like, you know, language and academic, and that's being seen as more, you know, accepted, because, you know, we need that expansion. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Also, to go into what you said, Kirwyn, there's this mythos that slam poets don't like reject form, and I don't agree with that, because there are a lot of really incredible forms that do really well in slam, like a pantoum. The inherent repetition of a pantoum really does a lot to enhance a spoken word experience.
Absolutely.
And I came into poetry through slam. That's how I began like becoming a poet in earnest. And then when I pursued when I pursued a bachelor's before my MFA, I often got a lot of pushback in the classroom saying that like, oh, your poems are doing too much on the page. Oh, it's too long. I'm like, come on, y'all can read a 3-page poem.
I don't know what any of that means. Like, it's doing too much, isn't that good? That's like being like, I have too much money. What do I do? You know, like, what is that?
It's too good.
I can't handle it.
Yeah, but I agree with you, Kirwyn, that that I think the language around the oral tradition of poetics is changing, and there is spaces such as the Watering Hole, for example, which is more intentionally accommodating for poets who come from a different type of tradition. And I think that in order for poetry to evolve and grow, we have to be accommodating to different types of traditions. There is no, I think to be so narrow-minded about what traditions we value is the disservice to the work itself, right? A disservice to the folks who come from that tradition, but also disservice to the work itself. Yeah, this is a great conversation, y'all. I don't know if we have any more questions from the audience. Any more questions from any of y'all? Okay, cool. I think we can close us out. I want to thank you all so much for being here, for kicking off our reading series for the new year. Thank you so much, everyone at home, for tuning in. Please follow Art Lit Lab on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Art Lit Lab, all one word. If you like this programming that you heard tonight, please consider donating to Art Lit Lab at artlitlab.org/support us/donate. Your generous contributions allow us to keep programming like this accessible to the public. Please consider purchasing books from our readers. Thank you so much, everyone, for a wonderful night of poetry, and we will see you next time.